Robert Kardashian Sr. is one of the most iconic figures in American pop culture. Lawyer, businessman, father of the Kardashian clan, and key player in O.J. Simpson's trial. But beneath his public persona, there is a murky legacy, one filled with secrets, alleged confessions, and long-hidden private thoughts. For years, rumors have circulated about a secret diary that Robert kept. A diary that allegedly contained bombshell entries about his family, his fears, and his regrets. The Kardashians themselves sued to prevent its wide publication, claiming that someone was trying to cash in on Robert's private reflections. Today, we're diving into 10 of the most shocking claims that have been associated with Robert Kardashian's diary, what they say he confessed, what has been reported, and what remains unconfirmed. This is a story of power, loyalty, pain, and legacy. But before we begin, please support the channel by subscribing and liking this video. Your engagement truly helps us keep creating more deep dive content like this. One of the most explosive claims comes from Caitlyn Jenner's memoir, where she alleges that Robert told her during a car ride in the late 1990s that he believed O.J. was guilty. According to Caitlyn, Robert said, "I would have been okay with it if they had gotten him in the first trial." If true, these words reveal a deep moral conflict. Robert defended O.J. publicly, yet may have harbored private doubt, a contradiction that paints his role in the trial in a far more complicated light than public courtroom theatrics would suggest. This alleged confession, if taken at face value, forces a reevaluation of one of the most high-profile friendships and legal partnerships in American history. Robert Kardashian spent the entirety of the O.J. trial standing beside Simpson, not merely as a supportive friend, but as a legally empowered member of the defense team, reinstating his law license to be part of the effort. He sat in court as prosecutors delivered graphic evidence, as Nicole Brown Simpson's family wept, and as the world questioned every move the so-called Dream Team made. In the public eye, Robert appeared unwavering, determined, and at times even defiant, a man who believed wholeheartedly in O.J.'s innocence. But Caitlyn's account introduces a very different layer, one that suggests the quiet erosion of certainty behind closed doors. Imagine the weight of that dual existence, defending a friend before millions of viewers while internally wrestling with doubt that could never be spoken aloud. There is a loneliness in that kind of moral isolation, a psychological battle that only the people closest to Robert might have ever witnessed. Caitlyn describes the moment not as casual chatter, but as something Robert said with a heaviness that implied resignation rather than anger. The statement carries a sense of emotional fatigue, as though he had reached a point where the truth, or at least his interpretation of it, had become too difficult to suppress. Whether it was guilt, frustration, or a need to share the burden with someone outside the legal circus, the alleged confession suggests a man quietly coming apart under the pressure of loyalty, legality, and conscience. The timing also matters. By the late 1990s, years after the verdict, the media storm had finally begun to subside, and the Kardashian family was transitioning into a new era. Yet Robert's name remained attached to the trial in a way that never fully faded. For him, the trial had ceased to be a chapter. It had become a legacy. Caitlyn's claim implies that he may have been haunted by that legacy, privately questioning whether his involvement had upheld justice or undermined it. This alleged revelation also reshapes how we understand Robert's behavior during and after the trial. Some observers noted that he appeared increasingly somber and withdrawn as proceedings dragged on, a stark contrast to the confident posture displayed by many of his colleagues. Others claimed he seemed uneasy with the aggressive tactics used by the defense, especially in the way Nicole's character was scrutinized. These subtle behavioral shifts, once dismissed as stress or fatigue, take on new meaning when viewed through Caitlyn's account. Moreover, this claim introduces a profound tension. Did Robert fear that, by helping secure OJ's acquittal, he played a role in preventing justice for two murder victims, one of whom had once been a close family friend? If he truly believed OJ was guilty, or even if he simply believed that reasonable doubt did not equal innocence, then the conflict between his public stance and private belief becomes one of the most compelling human dimensions of the case. Caitlyn's memoir does not provide new evidence about the murders, nor does it claim to hold secret documents or forgotten testimony. Instead, what it offers is insight into the emotional undercurrent that may have shaped Robert Kardashian's final years. The trial did not merely alter his public identity. It may have fractured parts of his inner world, leaving him to grapple with truths he felt unable to fully express. According to reporting on the alleged diary, Robert allegedly wrote very dark and personal reflections about his marriage to Kris Jenner. In particular, the Kardashians' lawsuit over the diary claims that early entries from as far back as 1989 describe physical abuse. A tabloid, In Touch, quoted an entry dated August 24, 1989, in which Robert supposedly wrote, "Kris was kicking and beating Kim and said she was going to kill her. Kim was hysterical." If accurate, this is one of the most devastating revelations, implying that Robert viewed his marriage not just as troubled, but dangerous. Also, according to reports, Robert's diary allegedly included heart-wrenching entries about his childhood, painting a deeply troubled picture of his early years. The lawsuits claim he detailed emotional neglect and abandonment. These reflections suggest that Robert was much more than the charismatic lawyer. He was a man burdened by vulnerability, carrying trauma that may have influenced every major decision he made, including his very public legal battles. One of the most sensational rumors has long swirled around Khloe Kardashian's parentage, and Robert's alleged diary entries seemingly fuel it. According to various sources, Robert sometimes implied that Khloe might not have been his biological daughter. At the same time, those who knew him have testified that regardless of biology, he declared, "Whoever her father is, she is my child." These conflicting sentiments, if accurate, reveal a tumultuous internal world, doubt on the one hand and unconditional love on the other. Part of the reason the diary became such a legal battlefield is that Robert allegedly foresaw how his private life could be used after his death. The Kardashians sued Robert's widow, Ellen Pearson, accusing her of attempting to sell diary entries and personal photos, claiming he left these materials to his children. This suggests that Robert may have kept careful records, not just to unburden himself, but to document his truth as he saw it, potentially as a way to influence how his family would be remembered. One of the more sensational allegations comes from those same reported diary entries, that Robert believed Kris Jenner had carried on an affair with a much younger soccer player. Whether or not those accusations are proven, they reflect a level of distrust and resentment in their marriage, secrets Robert allegedly felt compelled to record in his private journal. Beyond abuse, the diary is also said to contain entries where Robert accused Kris of emotional neglect toward their children. The lawsuits reference statements about a damning picture of her parenting, suggesting Robert believed the kids were being emotionally harmed. If true, this would add a deeply unsettling dimension to the family's origin story, revealing that the very foundation of the Kardashian household may have been shaky even in its earliest days. This one is well documented. Robert publicly stated that O.J. Simpson threatened suicide in Kim's bedroom. In a 1996-2020 interview with Barbara Walters, Robert said O.J. held a gun in Kim's room, expressing deep emotional turmoil. Robert recalled pleading with Simpson, saying, "Please no, I could never walk in this room. My daughter couldn't sleep in this bed. She'd know what happened. If this suicide threat was also part of his private writings, it underscores how much OJ's presence weighed on him emotionally, not just as a client, but as a friend, inextricably bound to his personal life. Some of the most damaging allegations come from the side of Ron Goldman's family, who claim that Robert hid critical evidence during the O.J. Simpson trial. Specifically, they say he possessed a bag that could have contained key items, but never turned it over. If Robert's diary included reflections on this, it raises profound ethical and legal questions about his loyalty, not just to O.J., but to the truth itself. Lastly, some reports suggest that Robert was deeply worried about the future of his legacy. He feared that his children might misuse his memories, reinterpret his words, or even hide parts of him for their own gain. That may be part of why he kept a detailed and emotional diary in the first place, not just to process his own pain, but to leave behind a version of himself that would be hard to ignore or distort after his death. Robert Kardashian's life is already the stuff of legend. A high-profile attorney, a devoted, yet complicated, father, a best friend to one of the most controversial figures in American history. But these alleged diary claims offer another side of him, a deeply conflicted, vulnerable, and sometimes tormented man, grappling with love, guilt, legacy, and doubt. Of course, it's important to note, many of these claims remain unverified, coming from reports, court filings, and memoirs. The Kardashians have publicly fought to keep these diary entries under lock and key, citing copyright issues and concerns over privacy. But if even a portion of what has been reported is true, then Robert Kardashian's diary could change how the world remembers him, not just as a lawyer or a public figure, but as a man who carried secrets too big to bury. If you found this deep dive fascinating, make sure to like the video, hit subscribe for more celebrity investigations, and turn on notifications, because we're just getting started. Let me know in the comments, which of these 10 claims surprised you the most? And do you think the diary will ever be fully released? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.